Former President Trump's historic criminal hush money trial is now in its final phase. After a marathon day of closing arguments, jurors will begin deliberating this morning with a former president's fate in their hands for the first time in American history. To convict Trump, they have to find he falsified business records to hide a hush money payment to adult film actress Stormy Daniels in order to influence the 2016 election. Prosecutors argued Trump planned a conspiracy and a cover-up to pull the wool over voters' eyes ahead of that election, while Trump's legal team attacked the prosecution's theory and their key witness, Michael Cohen, calling him the greatest liar of all time. ABC News senior investigative correspondent Aaron Katersky joins me now from outside that courthouse, along with ABC News legal contributor Brian Buckmeyer, senior reporter Catherine Falders, and executive editorial producer John Santucci. Aaron, there's been a lot of debate over jury instructions in this case, especially when it comes to election law. So where does that stand now, and what can we expect today?
We're about to find out how much extra Judge Juan Merchan is willing to tell the jury beyond the standard instructions for falsifying business records, pursuant to what prosecutors have argued was a conspiracy to conceal, to corrupt the 2016 election. The prosecutors do not have to prove the conspiracy. The jury does not have to agree on the elements of the conspiracy, but they do have to believe it existed and that Trump acted with intent to defraud the voting public when he falsified business records in order to convict. And the judge is going to explain all that, give some definition of terms. But whether he's going to do what the defense wanted and say non-disclosure agreements in and of themselves are not illegal, or what the prosecution wanted, which is that Trump can be convicted merely for causing the business records to be falsified. He didn't have to do it personally. We're not sure how much ancillary the judge is willing to put in there. He says he tends to stick to the standard jury instructions.
Catherine, what are you hearing about how Trump's legal team is feeling going into these jury deliberations, especially after so many hours of closing statements yesterday?
Yeah,
closing arguments, rather.
I think a lot of this is hard to predict, but at least what I'm hearing from sources close to Trump's legal team is look, if the jury begins deliberating today, which we know they will, and say that we learn that there's a verdict rather quickly, they don't believe that that bodes in their favor, if you will. That means that they've come to a conclusion quickly, and that, in their view, would most likely be guilty or some version of guilty on some of the various different counts here. Now, I think their thinking is then if the jury is deliberating into next week, well, maybe that's a good sign, at least for Trump, that there could be a hung jury, that the jurors just couldn't agree. And remember, they only need one juror here to not agree on some of the counts here, whether it's guilty or not guilty. So that's at least their thinking. Obviously, it's very stressful on their part. But again, this is all just reading tea leaves. We talked a little bit about yesterday Todd Blanche's closing arguments and one juror nodding along with him. Who knows what that means, if they're agreeing with him, if they were just being attentive. It's just so hard to tell. But at least in terms of timing, that's what the legal team at least is thinking internally.
And John, during deliberations, Trump cannot leave the courthouse. And that's one thing when there's a trial happening and you're watching witnesses and everything else that unfolds. It's another thing when you're literally just sitting there waiting to see if the jury has any questions or if they have a verdict. So what does that mean for Trump and the campaign?
It means the waiting is the hardest part. I mean, you really can't do anything. He can't go out and speak to cameras. He can't go out and do a press conference. He's not going to be able to go out to the park and get some fresh air. I mean, everybody's got to be up there on this floor, the 15th floor of this courthouse, Diane. And I do think what's interesting about it is that as much as Donald Trump cannot leave, none of the lawyers involved in this can leave. None of the press can leave. I mean, you know, what's been interesting about this process is that though Donald Trump is being treated like any other defendant, he is not any other defendant. You know, the 15th floor of this courthouse, which Aaron and our team have been running in and out of for about 6-7 weeks at this rate, is completely locked down. Security getting in and out of there is like Fort Knox. So to think that anybody is able to leave in these proceedings is just not possible. And I think for Donald Trump, that's where he's going to get frustrated, right? I mean, and we know that when he gets frustrated and angry, We're going to be watching Truth Social. He's going to have to restrain himself because while they're deliberating, while this case is still going on, that gag order is still in effect too. So best behavior.
So, Aaron, walk us through the different scenarios of outcome here, because obviously Trump could be acquitted or found guilty of all counts, but we could also have a few different variations in between.
Sure, and the way that it's charged, Trump is accused of falsifying 34 different business records. Some of those are invoices prepared by his former fixer, Michael Cohen. Some of those are entries in the Trump Organization's general ledger for how the reimbursement payments to Cohen were logged. And then some are the checks that Trump signed, mainly himself, although his sons signed a couple of the others. And so the jury may decide that some of the records were falsified but not others, or to hold Trump accountable for falsifying some of the records but not others. So a mixed verdict is certainly possible, but any conviction would mean that former President Trump is guilty of falsifying business records to cover up this conspiracy to corrupt the 2016 election.
So, Brian, what are you watching for today in terms of jury instructions? And once this goes to deliberation, what are you listening for in terms of potential questions the jury might ask before they do potentially return a verdict?
Yeah, so Dan, in terms of jury instructions, I'm looking to see what Judge Merchan does in terms of defining what it is to falsify business records. To Aaron's point, the different objects, the vouchers, the checks, the invoices. If we're talking about Donald Trump was only guilty for creating false documents and not causing false documents to be created, then I can see, as Aaron points out, a mixed verdict in the sense of maybe finding Donald Trump guilty for the checks that he signed, but not the invoices that were created because of his actions. And that's the difference between falsifying business records and causing them to be falsified. So that's what I'm really looking for. And also in terms of questions, definitions. Definitions are always important. Intent is one that usually comes up from a jury, oftentimes also asking about what reasonable doubt is. And I think also defraud here might be another one, looking to those two attorneys on the jury. That might be a question I think that comes up.
And, John, if he is found guilty on all counts, there is the potential for jail time, but all legal experts, I think, agree that that is unlikely in this case. So regardless of what happens, when this is over, former President Trump has to return to the campaign trail, or you expect that he would. So what does that mean going forward with this case now behind him? Well,
it means that, frankly, we kind of need to see what happens with the other cases. It seems like none of them are actually going to come to fruition before the November election. So much of Donald Trump's life for the last, 6+ months, if we go back to all of the civil cases last year, have been, I can't be out there with you because I'm stuck in this courtroom. Doesn't need to say that anymore because that's just not there anymore. So I think so much now is going to have to be getting out there, getting back on the campaign trail. You were talking to Rachel Scott and Avery Harper earlier. The VP hunt, it's something we all hear. His aides have been trying to get him to focus on. So I almost think things have to sort of resume normalcy, but it's a weird, new, bizarre normal with everything involving Donald Trump, because everything that has been this year, as we all know, Diane, has not been anything by the way that it should be.
All right, ABC News senior investigative correspondent Aaron Katersky, legal contributor Brian Buckmeyer, senior reporter Catherine Falders, and executive editorial producer John Santucci. Thank you all.